Spice and Wolf should be the most boring show to me. It really should. I don't care about economic stuff. Yet, for 3 weeks now, especially with an episode that's primarily focused on the currency side of things, this episode felt like 5 minutes. Watching them discuss the currency, the degrading of the silver, watching Holdo swindle that fool into thinking this was some grass-fed beef, being like, yeah, you smell that apple scent? Ooh, this is some good fur. Like, I like politics in anime. You can show me any sort of political intrigue and it's going to be exciting. But economic stuff really isn't my bread and butter. I make my own investments in my life and then I never focus on that shit again. Like, I just don't care about currency. I don't care about this type of topic. Yet Spice and Wolf, somehow, and honestly, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I really like the characters. I find the Central 2 just so charming and endearing. But for someone who has no interest in this type of storytelling, if your main hook is about currency, you know, just the concept of money and economics, I don't really care about that type of stuff. But somehow Spice and Wolf, a show that's all about economics, is one of my favorites of the season. And I think for a lot of people, when they hear about Spice and Wolf, they're like, oh, that kind of sounds like a cute show. And then they hear about the economic stuff, they're like, yeah, I'm not really into that stuff, though. And I don't know what I could say to people who aren't watching Spice and Wolf to get them to try it if, like, economic stuff isn't for them. Because normally I would say that sounds like watching paint dry if, like, most of the episodes are them talking about how to get money or how to get the best profit. Stuff like that just isn't interesting for me normally. But this show cracked a code. I don't know how, but it's actually incredible. Like, for me personally, now if you're into economic stuff, you know, immediately you're guaranteed to have a success with the show. But as someone who doesn't really care about economic side of things, I don't mind if it's like sprinkled into a political show every so often, but a show driven by merchants and the economics of this world, I don't know. But they cracked a code, and as I said last week, may have only been episode 2 last week, but it was already a masterpiece. I think that statement's more true now than it was last week. Full live reaction to this wonderful episode of Spice and Wolf is over on my Patreon if you want to see my full length thoughts to this or any of these wonderful episodes. It's going to be over there if you're interested. So, it's only getting better, man. This is a steady incline. And the best thing I've seen from this show, and I can tell it's only scratching the surface of the greatness known as Holo that I'm going to experience, is how she swindled that man. So we go in to trade our pelts. And the bartering, I mean, Lawrence, I thought did good. He was getting a little more. I think he got like 10 extra initially with what he was going to get. And she looks at our boy and says, hey, is that a fair price? And once she may not understand like what the currency is, like what the value of a single silver is. But as soon as he says, yeah, that's a pretty fair price, like that's a good deal, she doubles that. The idea that I mean, to her credit, she said with a single coin, you know, like she's gonna make a shit ton of money. She hoarded those apples, and I was like, well, girl, you gotta put yourself to work if you're saying that. And boy, golly, did she. The idea that it's so interesting how she's like, you know, why are you trying to pull a fast one on us? And I'm like, okay, maybe like they're actually worth more. No, like, he was getting a legitimately fair price initially, but the idea that because all of those apples were sitting on the pelts, the idea that she brings it up and, like, you know, these are, like, really rare animals they came from. Like, they were fed amazingly. You know, just look at how tough they are. And the fact that she swindled this man so hard, I think we went from, like, 140 to 210 or something like that. We essentially got 3 silver a pelt. Like, of course, as they say afterwards, anyone who gets actually upset by a lesson learned, you know, probably isn't fit for the business, but, that's fantastic. Stuff like that's interesting to me, and will always be interesting to me, seeing bartering, trading, this and that. But the second half of this episode is all about the idea of, we had this plan set up, I think it was in the first episode, about how this man wants to make a deal, and, you know, we give him, in this episode, 10 silvers and 10% of the profit, of basically because the whole like, okay, the coins are changing. And I like how the end result of this situation was pretty much this man was set to lose nothing or gain 10%. There was no other risk for him in this moment. Now, Lawrence has a plan in mind by the end of the episode. Of course, the episode was 5 minutes because they tried to screw us around. They claim it's 20 minutes, but, you know, I can tell it was only 5 minutes. I mean, there's no other explanation to why the episode felt like 5 minutes. That's a joke. Some people don't always understand that. No, but like seriously, like the show flies by in like a minute. But I like the idea that when it comes to like we're trying to figure out if there is any change in the coins and how it would be subtly implemented into society. So we go to one of Lawrence's like pals who, you know, I'm not sure if he was lying or if he actually had no idea that things are different, but the silver is degrading. Like it's not as pure as it once was. Because we have a character who is basically part animal, her ears are, well, literally more enhanced. So she can just do a little jingle with the coins, you know, from the newest ones to some of the older ones, and she's able to tell that there's actually a difference. And I'm really excited to see what they do, because watching two characters talk about coins, talk about boring things that, or at least what should be boring to me, and I'm just like, tell me more, Holo. Tell me more, Lawrence. And I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's just because the dialogue feels human. It doesn't feel like some tech bro or stock bro dropping, you know, it's like the difference of having a fun teacher versus a bland, boring teacher. That's probably the best way to actually explain it. In high school, I had the same math teacher for 3 out of 4 years. I fucking hated math. And the one year I didn't hate math was the one year I didn't have the one teacher who I had for 3 years. Math is fucking boring. You love it, go ahead, go enjoy it. It's boring as hell. Those classes felt pretty good in my 11th year of high school because of that teacher. That's probably the reason Spice and Wolf works, is that the author of the source material wrote characters who didn't feel like they're smarter than you, or they're trying to just be like, why don't you get it? Or they just come across as inhuman. They feel like people you'd want to be around, and I think that's why their conversation about the economics doesn't feel like watching paint dry as it normally would. And I think one of the best examples I can give, I don't remember the anime's name. I think it was called The Great Passage. I could be mistaken. It was a show about people making a dictionary. Sounds like the most boring concept, but believe me, that show was anything other than boring. It was fantastic, very slept on show at the time. And I think in a similar way, what the show is doing for its main story hook about economics and trading and stuff is normally boring to your average Joe, but you give them, it's not just about giving them some cute waifu named Holo. Holo is absolutely adorable, don't get me wrong, but her character is fantastic, especially given her history and how she's learning about this world, and most importantly, how Lawrence is helping her to branch out and just how natural their chemistry is. They feel like if you have to learn about economics, make it be from them. And I actually kind of feel like I'm learning some shit about economics watching this show, I'm not gonna lie. This was an even better episode than the prior two. It feels like we're just gonna have a steady incline with the Spice and Wolf quality. I'm loving it. This should be a boring show. It's normally what I would call boring, but it's anything other than that. The episodes, I'm convinced, are 3 minutes long, and you can't convince me otherwise. Let me know what you thought down below this week's episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell so you know if I want to upload more. And like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Kevin Hoffman, Madara Fire, Icy Cicero, Michael Meadows, Watson, and Bryant. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.